Hello world and welcome to Nick's Talks Code, or more specifically, Getting Started with Git Part 1, aka what I have affectionately dubbed Getting Started, or anything you need to do before you can actually use Git to track files. Now, I know this video seems a little lengthy, but only because I can almost certainly guarantee you that not all of the parts of this video will be relevant to you, and therefore you will not, in fact, be watching the entirety of this video. There are timestamps in the description below, or I will add timestamps to a pinned comment so that you can use those to navigate through this video, skip any parts that aren't relevant, and watch the ones that are. That being said, we are going to use the terminal in this video, so for any of my code newbies out there that are currently starting to have a mild to severe panic attack because I just used the word terminal, keep calm, don't panic, I got you. I was you not a couple of years ago, and now I'm the one teaching you about all of this. So it just goes to show that you can learn, and I'm going to be the one to teach you. One last notification warning. If you are wondering about the jingles, I do have to unfortunately tell you that they have multiplied and spread through the video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, you will. Also, I guess last warning, if you do not like silly musical jingles mixed in with your educational programming content, then you probably should not continue watching this video because you probably won't enjoy it. Otherwise, are you ready to start? There are two main things you need to do before you can actually use Git. Number one is download and install it. Because if you don't have Git, you can't use it. Ain't exactly rocket science, is it? As you can see, I skipped ahead a little bit and have already searched for Git on Google. Now you at home, can technically just click this link right here, and that will bring you straight to the Git downloads page. I, however, am going to navigate to the homepage first because there are some things I want to show you real quick. If you're already familiar with version control systems in general and you want to learn more about Git specifically and what it has to offer compared to some of the other version control systems out there, then be sure to check out the About page, which has a lot of information on that topic. And then the other thing I wanted to point out are the documentation pages, which include reference pages to all of the Git commands. There is also a way to read the Git Pro Book online for free, videos, and links to other external related content. Now, I do need to warn you, if you're not just a Git newbie, but a newbie to version control systems and code in general, the About pages and the documentation pages might cause more confusion or possible overwhelm rather than clarity. The information on there is just generally more geared towards people who already have a fairly solid understanding of version control systems. The exception would probably be the videos on the documentations page that I just circled, but you're already watching my video, so hopefully there should be no need for you to watch those. With that being said, you know where to find the information. It is still a good reference for later. Proceed with caution, and let's move on to the downloads page. Now, one of the advantages of Git is that it is available on macOS, Windows, and Linux operating systems. Unfortunately, that also means that how you go about it is entirely dependent on which operating system you use. I'm not going to go too deeply into this because that would take too long, and I do not own all of these operating systems. But here's the gist with some tips and tricks that you do not want to miss. Also, don't forget that I do have timestamps for each specific operating system in the description below and the pinned comments. So check those out if you want to skip ahead to your specific operating system, and I will see you there. My Mac users out there have a couple of different options on how to go about downloading and installing Git, 4 to be exact. Option number 1, install it using the Homebrew Package Manager, which you obviously also need for that to work. So if you don't have Homebrew yet, but you want to take this approach, install that first, then use it to install Git. Keep in mind that you need administrator rights to install Homebrew, and if you do get it installed without them first, you might still need them to install Git afterwards. So if you're trying to install Git on an account that does not have admin rights, you might want to take a different approach. If not, and if you do have Homebrew installed already, just copy the command, paste and execute it inside your terminal, and that should install Git using Homebrew. Option number 2, if you want to or are creating an application for any of the Mac operating systems and you're using the Xcode editor to do so, then good news. Whenever you create a new project using the Xcode editor, it should already be giving you the option to track the project using Git. However, if you will not in fact be writing code in Swift or C Objective, or you won't be using the Xcode editor, this approach will not work for you. Which brings us to option number 3, use a binary installer, which for complete beginners is probably the easiest approach with the least amount of work and the smallest learning curve. Once you've clicked the link, just click that big old green button that says download, and it should automatically start downloading the package. Once that's completed, go to your downloads folder, and when the file is ready, double click. It will do its thing for a little bit, and then if all goes well, check your devices right there, and it should now show a new file that says Git with a specific version number. Navigate there, make sure you double click the file with the .pkg extension, and that should hopefully start the installer. Just an FYI here, your security preferences do need to be set to allow unidentified developers since it is a third-party package, or that will pop up. And then the fourth and last option on how to get Git, you can also build it from source, but I do not recommend you take this approach unless you actually know what you're doing. And since you're here, let's be honest, you probably don't. That's okay though, you're here to learn, and I promise learn is what you shall do. I should also mention that you can also install the Git graphical user interface right here, but I'm guessing at this point you probably have not in fact finished downloading and installing Git yet, so let's focus on that first before we focus on any extras. That being said, if you do have any questions or if you're running into any issues downloading and installing Git on your macOS, if you're running into any errors, please do let me know in the comments below. I will answer any questions that you have to the best of my ability. If not, I will see you in the next section where I will show you a little trick on how to check if Git was installed correctly in just a second. My Windows users are in luck because downloading and installing Git on Windows is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory, and you don't even need to use the terminal. As soon as you click this link right here, it should automatically start downloading your file just like it did on my screen since I am recording this on a Windows operating system. If it didn't though, or if for some reason you want to download a different version, you can also manually install it using any of these links. Don't forget to double-click the file once it has finished downloading and run through the installer. If you are installing Git for the first time ever, I recommend you basically just follow along with the installer and stick to the default values. Except for this screen right here, where it asks to specify the default editor used by Git. So do make sure you select whatever code editor you are using right here. One last thing I have to mention is that you can also build Git from the source code using this link right here. However, if you don't actually know what you're doing there, I do not recommend this approach and advise you to take the easy road with the installer instead. If you do have any questions about that, are running into any issues, or if you want me to make a video talking about what some of those options during the installer are talking about, do drop me a comment below. I will answer any questions to the best of my ability, and I would always appreciate any kind of feedback or inspiration about future content. I do create these videos for all of you out there, so please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions or requests. If not, I will see you in the next section where I will show you a little trick on how to check if Git was installed correctly in just a second. For my Linux users out there, the best approach is to find your specific Linux distribution in the list below first. Then copy the command and execute it inside your terminal, which will use whatever your Linux distribution's preferred package manager is to install Git. Now you can also install Git from source code, but I only ever recommend you do this if you actually know what you're doing. Now if you have any questions or are running into issues, running into errors while trying to download and install Git on your Linux operating system, then do please drop me a comment below. I will try to answer any questions to the best of my ability. I currently do not have a Linux operating system, but when I first started learning how to code, I did actually dual boot my old Windows laptop so that I could run a Linux operating system on top of the Windows one. And I did use that Linux operating system as my coding environment. So I do have, some experience with Linux operating systems. So again, if you have any questions, if you're running into issues, please drop me a comment below. If not, I will see you in the next section where I will show you how to check if Git was installed correctly in just a second. How do I know if Git was actually installed? Once you've downloaded and installed Git, or at least you think you've managed to finish this step, there is a super easy way to check if you did in fact manage to download and install Git correctly. As you can see, we do need the terminal for this one, but as I said, super easy. All you have to do is type in git version, press enter to execute the command, and if all goes well, you should see git version and then a specific version number. The version number might be higher. It probably will be if you're watching this anytime after this video came out, especially with how fast technology is going. It should, however, probably not be much lower, if lower at all. You're probably going to be safer off with a version either equal to mine or higher. You can obviously also use this command if you want to check out your specific version number at any time later in the future. Now, if you did not get this response, then please drop me a comment below and let's try to figure out together what went wrong so you can move on to the next section. Otherwise, we do need to do a little bit more terminal work, but I promise it's not a whole lot more. It will probably take about 2 more minutes, and then you're officially ready to start tracking files using Git. So, if you are ready, I will see you in the next section in just a second. Once you have completed step 1 of this tutorial, you are ready to move on to step 2, configure it. Install then config, where you tell Git who you are, 'cause without it, it can't do shit, snit. Oh, come on. You didn't think I was gonna swear in an educational video now, did you? This is age-appropriate content. Technically, there is only one thing that Git requires you to configure, or well, two, but they are related: your username and your user email. Now, both of these will be used whenever you save or commit changes to identify you as the author of those changes. So keep in mind when you choose the values, when you choose your username and your user email, that anyone who can see your commits can actually see both of these values. That being said, specifying these is not hard. All you have to do is type in git config -- and we have to specify what level you want the configuration to apply to. Now, there are 3 different levels. The first one is -- local, which means that any of the configuration values will apply on the repository level. Then the second option, or level to which the configuration can apply, is the -- global flag, which means that it applies to all repositories of that specific user. So not just repository level, but user-wide. It is also the most widely used flag or option here. And then our last option is the -- system option, which, as the name suggests, will make all of the configuration values apply to the entire system, meaning all users and all repositories. As I said before, the -- global option, though, is the most widely used one, so if you don't know which one to use, you're probably safer off going with that one. Also, if you do not specify that specific flag, it will default to the -- local one. If you have figured out what flag to use, then go ahead and type in user.name and specify which name you want to use between double quotes. Again, people will see this, so be aware of that. Press enter once you've selected your name. And once you've done that, you can do the exact same thing for the user.email. Again, specifying your specific email between double quotes. Once you've specified your username and user email, you're technically finished. So this next one is not required, but still smart to add, which is git config core.editor, which again you specify within double quotes. Now, which one it is kind of depends on which one you're using, but as you can see, I am typing out some of the more widely used options, or options for the more widely used editors, I should say. So make sure that you definitely check out the list that I am currently showing you. And if your editor is not in this list, or if you're having trouble identifying your editor in this list, give me a shout out in the comments below. Now, what this will do is basically tell Git that that is the code editor it should use, because if you don't specify this, it will use the default editor, which is Vim. At least that's how I think you pronounce it. I have never used it in my entire life. I might possibly be too young, so let me know if I pronounced it wrong. I'm curious. The absolute last tip slash trick I wanted to impart you with, I promise it's the last one, is the git config dash dash list one, which as you can see should show you a list of all your configurations. Now, if this is in fact correctly showing all your values that you just specified, then congratulations, you have officially downloaded, installed, and configured Git, and you are now ready to start tracking files with it. Hello again. If you are seeing me right now, then that means you have made it through this video. Really hope you enjoyed it, that you thought it was helpful. If you did like it, please like it, give it a thumbs up, and shout out to me in a comment. Let me know. I love any feedback. I do create these videos for you, so if you do have any requests on future content that you would like to see from me, also drop a comment and let me know. Again, thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. And goodbye, world, or better yet, I hope to see you next time.